Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice of radio, so today we're going to be having a look at the Japanese metagame. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we now have enough information to be able to see what Pokemon decks are being played in Japan. Now, we did a video about like this a couple of weeks ago, and I stand by that video, but it was from a small tournament with like 50 people, and it was cool. But it was a small tournament with like 50 people. Well, now we've had a big tournament with about 1,300 people. So now we can look at the metagame in Japan with a lot more certainty than we did before. Do remember that Lost Thunder and all the cards contained therein are legal in Japan at the moment. That means that by the time Lost Thunder comes out, this will be our exact format, which is awesome. Point being, when Lost Thunder drops, this should be exactly what our format looks like, so suffice to say this is probably a video that if you're going to be playing in that format, you should pay a little bit of attention to. We have this metagame pie chart that was made by the lovely David Hochmann. Yes, he translates cards, he posts deck lists, he makes metagame charts. David is a man who has done a lot of good for people like me. So, we can see here all the decks that are currently being played, and one of the things that should jump out to you here, that's quite a lot of variety. 17 different deck archetypes in the top 32. This is showing the 32 best decks in the tournament. Now, there is an argument there for going, well, hang on a second, Wassy. 5 of those different archetypes play Zoroark. Even if you want to say that, and you can, that still leaves us with like a dozen different archetypes. So the thing to notice here is that Zoroark is still the best deck in the format. His partner of choice at the moment is Lycanroc. This flashes around a little bit, but Zoroark is still king. Riotous Beating doing 20 damage for each of your Pokemon in play for a double colorless energy. Trade allowing you to discard 1 card from your hand and draw 2. Zoroark remains king. Lycanroc acts as a decent attacker, especially with the GX attack. Does 50 damage for each Pokemon on your opponent's bench. People don't generally use Zoroark's GX attack. Almost nobody does. And the ability is a gusting effect. And yeah, you're playing Guzma, but wouldn't you rather have Guzma and Bloodthirsty Eyes? I think most people would agree that they would. The interesting thing about this, however, is Weavile. Weavile is seeing a fair bit of play here, and generally speaking, it is the Weavile from Ultra Prism. The Weavile that does 50 damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon that has an ability. I'm not going to give you a huge long list here, but we're going to go through the rest of these decks, and we're going to see stuff like Decidueye, which has an ability. Obviously opposing Lycanroc and Zoroark, which have an ability. The new Naganadel, which has an ability. Malamar, which has an ability, etc. You are going to see abilities are big in the format at the moment, so this becomes a very, very good attacker. And David has given us a note that these decks generally played 0, 1, or 2 Weavile. And of the 9 Zoroark Lycanroc decks in top 32, one of them actually didn't play Lycanroc, but it was only 1. Second biggest deck, Buzzwole. One with Lycanroc that we've already seen, one with Alolan Ninetales. Now, I've done a couple videos on Alolan Ninetales. I will link them in the description, but long story short, when you evolve into it, you can search your deck for any 2 item cards. It means that you can have Beast Ring at the perfect time to accelerate energy. It only works if your opponent has 3 or 4 prizes remaining. And allows you to do things like play 2 Custom Catcher at once. And if you play 2 Custom Catcher at once, it's a Pokemon Catcher. It's a gusting effect. So between Custom Catcher and Lycanroc, we are learning that gusting effects are still in the best decks in the format. You got 12 Zoroark decks playing Lycanroc, and then 3 Buzzwole decks, all of whom are playing either Counter Catch with Alolan Ninetales or Lycanroc. Little bit over the top, gusting is still amazing. We also saw a couple other decks that did get a couple things going on here. We did see 3 copies of Blacephalon Naganadel. Now again, I've done a video about that. I'll link it in the description. Save trying to give you all the information here. But basically, Blacephalon does 50 damage for each fire energy you put in the Lost Zone from all of your Pokemon. And Naganadel's ability lets you grab an energy, a basic energy, from the discard every turn and pop it on Naganadel. So quite simply, every turn, you just use your Naganadel to accelerate energy, Lost Zone them with Blacephalon, do lots of damage. It is a great deck. It's gonna make waves when Lost Thunder hits. We also saw 3 Ultra Necrozma Malamar. Now this is very interesting because Ultra Necrozma Malamar has proper job fallen out of favour in US and Europe. Basically, Malamar accelerates energy to Ultra Necrozma. Ultra Necrozma does silly damage with Photon Geyser. But it's not seen a huge amount of play after the initial hype. But with big bulky GXs like Buzzwole and Zoroark and Blacephalon kind of ruling the format, I suppose it does make sense that something like this that can just one-hit KO all of them could rise to the top again. We saw a couple of Giratina Malamar. I mean, basically, you use Malamar with the crazy new Giratina. You can pop it from your discard to your bench and then put 1 damage counter on each of 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. Yay! And then you use other spreading cards like Tapu Koko and Shining Arceus. Again, I did a video about this. I'll pop a link to it in the description. But my point is, it's a good spread deck revolving around non-GX Pokemon and Shrine of Punishment. Shrine of Punishment is all the rage in US and Europe at the moment. And although it's seeing play in Japan, it's in the slightly smaller decks. The big decks are still big GX decks. Some of the smaller decks are coming along and playing it. This spread Malamar deck, however, looks like it's for real. And then there's a whole bunch of just one-off decks which got 1 top cut each. Alolan Exeggutor. Now, we did do a video about this deck, so I'll pop a link to that one in the description. We've been profiling some of these Japanese decks, so do go check them out. Alolan Exeggutor basically does 120 for a single energy, as long as you've got 5 different types of basic energy in the discard. So you use the new Shuckle, which, when you pop it on the bench, you get to search your deck for free basic energy and discard them. That gives the speed that Alolan Exeggutor needs to be successful. Although you do also play some Sceptile in there as well, because, you know, Sceptile's kind of fun. We did see 1 top cut here, going to Weavile Honchkrow. Now, there's actually a couple Weavile you can use here. Either the Ultra Prism one that does lots of damage, or the one that does 60 damage to each Pokemon in play that has an ability. And then Honchkrow comes rocking in, the one from Guardians Rising, which does, for a double colourless energy, 10 damage, plus 10 for each damage counter on all of your opponent's Pokemon. So here, really, the spread Weavile is probably a better idea. One deck that was Naganadel Stakataka came along and did quite well here. You've got Stakataka GX that, well, lowers damage done to your Ultra Beast. Naganadel does 20 damage for each of your Ultra Beasts in play for 1 colourless energy. And then you've got the promo Duskmane Necrozma. It's been released twice, but both of them were promos. 1 metal energy, 60 damage to one of your opponent's EX or GX Pokemon. Now, I did a video about that long ago. It didn't have a deck list in, but it does explain the deck, so I'll pop a link to that one in the description. This is a video where we're rolling through the metagame. There's no way I can give you a full rundown of all of these decks, but I will pop a whole bunch of links in the description, so if you want to learn more about them, you can do so. Not the powerhouse deck we thought it would be, but still seeing a bit of play. We saw 1 Quad Macargo deck. Again, I have done a video, link in the description. And with Macargo here, you're actually playing the one from Celestial Storm and the GX. The one from Celestial Storm puts any card on top of your deck. The GX has an ability whereby once during your turn you may discard the top card of your deck. If it's an energy, you can attach it to one of your Pokemon. And of course, with the Macargo from Celestial Storm, well, it's going to be an energy. We then do see an attack, which is rather similar to Blacephalon's here. You can just discard as many energy as you like, but it's got to be from Magcargo. 50 damage plus 50 more for each you discarded. Though shout out to the GX attack that for 1 energy discards the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck. It might just be a weaker version of Naganadel Blacephalon, so that is something to watch, but it still made top cut here. We saw 1 copy of Decidueye Alolan Ninetales, link in the description, and you basically use Alolan Ninetales to make sure you can get stuff like Rare Candy, and your Decidueye deck runs super smoothly. But because you're using Alolan Ninetales, you can play stuff like a 1/0/1 Swampert line, and then a single copy of Super Boost Energy, and then Swampert actually becomes a really good attacker as well. My favourite deck that saw success was a single copy of Granbull. 160 for 1 fairy energy, just so long as you've got 0 cards in hand, but you use it with a Rangaroo and with Magcargo to try and make sure that it's not the worst thing ever, that you can draw out of that. And then, of course, you play Shrine of Punishment to do a bit more damage. I love me some Granbull. I adore that deck, and yes, there's a video about it, link in the description. And then finally, Lost March. Lost March was the hyped deck, according to the lovely Antoine Boulet, going into the tournament. And it just, it got 1 top 32, but so did Granbull, so did Magcargo. Did not do as well as people were expecting it to do, not by a long shot. Essentially, you've got Jumpluff here that does 20 damage for each of your Pokemon in the Lost Zone for just a single energy. Skiploom's ability, you evolve up into Skiploom, you Lost Zone Skiploom and hop it underneath and swap it for a Jumpluff from your deck. So essentially, as soon as you get your Stage 1 Skiploom out, you've already got your Jumpluff and 2 Pokemon in the Lost Zone. Then you've got Trumbeak here, which if it's in your hand, you just pop it in the Lost Zone. And then you get to look at the top card of your opponent's deck. If it's a supporter card, you can pop that in the Lost Zone. It's an ancillary benefit, but it's a pretty good ancillary benefit. And then we play Lost Mixer here, because it just lets you Lost Zone 2 cards from your hand and draw a card. And then you got Single Energy Jumpluff. Did not do as well as everyone expected it to do. So there are some conclusions we can draw. First of all, this is a wide variety of decks. Secondly, Lost Thunder is going to really mix up the format. We've got Magcargo. We've got Alolan Ninetales. We've got Blacephalon. We've got Lost March. We've got Granbull. There are a lot of Lost Thunder cards which are integral to the decks here. I should also mention the new Giratina, which is great. By my counting, 13 of these 32 cut decks really need Lost March cards to actually be really good. That's amazing. So we've got a wide open format with lots of new decks coming in. If that's not an exciting time, I don't know what is. Plus Granbull made top 32. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that's the Japanese metagame. You know the deal at this stage. Get yourselves over to the comment section. Tell me what you think about this. Tell me which of these decks you're looking forward to playing when Lost Thunder drops. And tell me if you were surprised by any decks being on this list, not being on this list, etc. Go nuts, but do remember the rule. Be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.